Hey, this is Yazuki Wolf, and it looks like we have some news from the Bethesda conference at E3. They have confirmed that Elder Scrolls 6 is in the works. There's no extra reveals there. We just know that they're still working on it. And in the meantime, they've announced a new Elder Scrolls title, The Elder Scrolls Blades. So I'm guessing this is going to be just something to kind of keep us satisfied in the meantime while they're still working on the next installment of the official Elder Scrolls series. And now, Elder Scrolls Blades may be a bit of a mixed bag for a lot of Bethesda fans, I'm imagining, because although Todd Howard comes out and he says that it is meant to be a full-on open world Elder Scrolls experience, but as you can see in this conference, it is primarily a mobile game. And now I'm saying primarily because you see here, he shows the game being played on what it looks to be an Android or an iPhone. And it uses a lot of touch movement and things that you would expect from a mobile device. But if you listen to the whole conference, it's not only a mobile game, because toward the end of the conference, Todd Howard then goes on to say that he wants to release this on as many platforms as possible and as many devices as possible. So he wants it to be on everything from mobile to PC, and this was the big one for me, VR. So those of you who don't know, I own a HTC Vive, and I am playing the crap out of Skyrim VR. It is amazing. It's not. I'm not going to say it's everything I hoped it would be. I do have some nitpicks, but it is more than enough for me. I'm very satisfied with that gaming experience. So I am tentatively excited about this game. I say tentatively because there are some caveats, which I'm going to have to go over at the end. But for now, let me just say that I'm looking at this announcement, and it looks like there's a lot of potential here. It looks like there's a potential for this to be a really engaging experience. For example, I don't think that mobile games are bad just because they're on mobile devices. I have definitely criticized mobile games a fair deal, and I feel that the freemium models and microtransactions that tend to rear their ugly heads in those games have a lot of issues. And also just the fact that generally developers that make for mobile games, they kind of water things down for a casual audience. That's a whole nother video there. But let me just say that the actual device is essentially a small computer. So when you think about it, you have a small computer with a touch input, which you can use gestures and other types of controls that wouldn't be possible on other platforms. And there is possibility and potential, especially as a game designer. I feel that it is really an untapped kind of potential that you have through these smartphone devices. So I don't think that games are necessarily bad just because they're on a mobile device. I've seen many really good games, and I'm looking at the controls here as it's being shown. Let me rewind a little bit back to where he's showing the initial controls here. You see that it seems like there is, I guess you could call it a navigation movement where you tap and then it moves to where you're navigating. And I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit and also mention VR at this point too, because I think that's interesting how the sort of gesture movements I see here. At first when I heard VR, I was like, how can you make a mobile game also playable in VR? And he didn't just say like Android VR. He said even the main VR, like HTC Vive, Oculus Rift. He didn't mention those, but there was a screen cap that showed a HTC Vive. And he also said full on VR systems. So I'm assuming that means HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, PlayStation VR probably all is included in there as well. And so I was like, how could that be that you can translate a game that's meant to be played in your hand with your finger to a game that's a full body, like standing up with motion controllers? But now I'm looking at this here, and you see the tap here, where there's the navigation controls where you tap, and then it moves to where you're moving, sort of like a MOBA game. And I'm looking at it now, and that looks a lot like the teleportation of a VR game. So I'm assuming that could translate very simply to a VR game, especially if you look at games like VR Chat, where you have the teleport that's kind of delayed by your character moving toward it. That's not the only type of movement. You can also hold it with two hands, and I'm assuming in this case the left screen acts as your movement, the right screen acts as your camera, and so you have this sort of gamepad controls here. And also right here, it looks like it has a control scheme similar to Infinity Blade, where you're actually swiping the screen and your sword is following the movement of your fingers. And once again, this is another type of control that looks like it would be very easily translatable to VR, because in the same way that the gesture controls of the smartphone device follows your fingers movement, that is very similar to how in VR you have the motion controllers that are positionally giving an input into the game to tell it where to put your sword in virtual space. So I'm seeing that this is doable. This could actually work. Now, I think there are definitely issues where you're swiping on a 2D surface is only one kind of a plane of information, whereas in VR you have a full Z, Y, X axis going on. So I'm assuming that there may be some simplification there. So, for example, the attacks I'm guessing are going to be based on if it's attacking from the left side. Maybe you can block from the left or the right, and depending on the swipe, it would be. For example, if the shield was on the left side, you would have to swing on the right side in order for it to register a hit or something. I don't know if it would be as intensive as a game like Vanishing Realms, where you can kind of jab in between like the shield and armor and things like that. But I'm assuming that on a very simple basis, they would be able to translate a swing from the left side, swing from the right side. Probably similar to like old school the Zelda Wii game where you had motion controls and whatnot. So I see some interesting things that could go on there. Also, it bears mentioning that this looks like it's probably going to be a streamlined experience, so you're not going to have a full open world where you're walking from town to town. It appears that there are, I believe there was 3 modes. There was the town, which is a town that you can upgrade and kind of unlock new NPCs in there. That sounds similar to me as something like when you have Dark Souls, where you go out and you adventure and you find new NPCs, and then they come back to the town, and now you have access to a blacksmith or to a new merchant or whatnot like that. I think there's some kind of similarity there, where you have your main base that's in your town and that's upgrades as you play, and then you don't actually leave the town and go out and adventure. It doesn't look like, anyways. It looks like you have another mode that's the arena mode, where you have PvP. Now that's quite interesting, because we haven't had PvP in an Elder Scrolls title up until now, as far as I know. We will have the mod allowing you to play Skyrim together. I believe it's called Skyrim Together, where you can there may be some PvP possibilities there, but that's not an official Bethesda product per se. So this is the first official supported PvP in an Elder Scrolls game, as far as I can tell. And once again, going back to how you can have the PvP where you can be cross-platform with a person playing on their phone actually being able to play against someone in a VR. Now that's quite interesting. I'm very interested to see how that plays out. But now then the third mode was I forgot if it's just called dungeon mode, but it's basically it's called Abyss. That's right, which is just progressively difficult dungeons, which I believe he meant, from what he says, it sounds like they're probably going to be somewhat randomly generated. It's a combination of a homemade elements that are probably mixed together through some sort of random generation. And he called it roguelike. I don't know if that just means that it's randomly generated, or if it means that it's actually roguelike in terms of like net hack, like dungeon delving or anything like that. But I don't know. We'll see what that turns into. But it does seem like the experience is kind of separated, where you have your main town, you have your dungeons, and you have your PvP, and it's not just one seamless world. Now, I can see how some people would not be particularly excited about that or happy about that, but for me, I don't mind it so much. For example, I've played Mountain Blade a lot, and other people who have played that game, like Mountain Blade Warband in particular, it is very streamlined in the fact that you can go to a town and you don't have to actually walk to the merchants, and you don't have to walk to where the armor smith is or something. You just you go through a UI menu and you pick where the armor smith is, and you do your stuff, and then you just tab out and you go back into the real world. And it's very streamlined that way, and you don't waste a lot of time walking from place to place. And I think that actually works really well, and especially if we're talking about mobile, putting this on mobile devices. I think streamlining the experience is a good idea, as long as it's not watered down too much. And so that's where we get to my caveats and why I am tentatively interested in this. I will definitely try it when it comes out, but I can also see a lot of traps that we could run into, being that this is a mobile device. Now, they mentioned that the Abyss is dungeons. Does that mean that these are actually really full-on dungeons with like traps and you're going back and forth, or is this just like a long hallway of you just fighting enemies and not really having a lot of creativity? And maybe it might even be like I've played mobile games where it's like a 2-minute experience where you just walk in, a skeleton comes up, maybe you kill the skeleton like three hits, and there's no real danger of him killing you most of the time, and then you're done. And it says, "Oh, quest complete. You leveled up." La 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 la. You know, is it gonna be like that, or is it gonna be an actual like? Is it gonna feel like a dungeon? You know, and the PvP, I think it'd be hard to mess that up. It's pretty straightforward. Just one person gets another person, so that's probably okay. But then now the other part is the town. This is where I'm a little worried, because I think this is where they're probably going to put the microtransactions. It seems so. He announced that this is going to be free. I think I would be more excited about this actually if it wasn't free, because free to me means that they have to get their money somewhere, and Bethesda up to this point hasn't really been fallen into the trap of microtransactions. And I feel like since this is free, I'm scared that they're going to stick that in somewhere. So I could imagine a scenario where, say, in order to get particularly good armor, and you have PvP, so you have player versus player going on, so you're going to want to be strong to fight in that. But say that you have to get a certain type of armor from a blacksmith that you have to unlock through like some microtransaction, like crystal or whatnot, and maybe even you have to pay crystals every time you're forging these things, and maybe the forge is even even a random number generator. Maybe that's they're gonna be their loot box, right? And maybe you're gonna want to do PvP, but then in order to be competitive in PvP, you have to pay money, and then that equals pay to win. So I'm wondering, I don't know. Like I really hope that they will not go down that route. Hopefully maybe the town will just be sort of like. You can make your own house and you can like customize things and it'd be more aesthetic, and you could pay money to kind of improve the look of your town, and maybe even to have armor that looks really cool and whatnot, but that they will not make it pay to win. But I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see. Up till now, Bethesda has been really good about that, and I would like to say that I trust them and that I don't think they will go down that route. But unfortunately, the kind of game industry as a whole has been toying with that a little too much as of late, so we'll have to see. Oh, okay. So one more thing that I forgot to mention was mods. So Todd Howard says here that he wants this to be a game that you can play the way that you want to play it, and I think that in essence is the appeal of Elder Scrolls. But I'm looking at this and I don't see. Well, first off, I don't see sort of like different types of paths that your character can take. Like I don't see that you're able to sort of join the Wizards Guild or do like the types of things that we know from the Elder Scrolls. I don't see a lot of story in this. It looks like you kind of have your town that you level up, and then you have your dungeon that you can go into, and then you have your PvP, right? And well, maybe you can leave the town and you can explore, and there might be other things there. I'm not really sure, but I'm assuming it's not going to be at the same level as the full-on Elder Scroll titles that we've had up till now. And then also the biggest thing that has made Elder Scrolls a game that, and particularly Skyrim as of late, a game that I have sunk thousands of hours into, is that you can mod it to make it into the custom experience of exactly what you want from the game. And I don't know if that's something that's going to be available here. I'm assuming that a lot of the stuff that you would be able to do with mods, they're probably going to prevent you from doing, because that's where the microtransactions are probably going to try to get their money from. And I don't necessarily mind that if the microtransactions are based primarily on aesthetics, sort of like cosmetic type modifications. That may be a good place for microtransactions to be in a title like this. But it still comes down to the point where I'm stuck with the vanilla experience, which I may enjoy for a couple months or so, but I may not spend 1,000 hours or so, because I work as a game designer, and part of what I love about Skyrim is that I don't just play Bethesda's Skyrim, I get to design my own Skyrim. And I don't know, well, I'm assuming that there's not going to be moddable. Although he did say it will be available on PC, so who knows? Maybe there will be mods for the PC version. We'll see. But yeah, let's hope for the best. Bethesda hasn't really dropped the ball in any extreme way up till now. I mean, there's been some little fumbles with like the paid mod stuff, but I mean, no real like super like EA level shenanigans going on so far. So let's kind of tread softly, look ahead, and hopefully it will work out. So that's all I have to say about that. Till next time, Yoroshiku.